We are back, live, active, in charge. The PGA season has actually been going for a while, if you count the fall, but no one really does. The season, in my opinion, got started a couple weeks ago at Torrey and really launched at, some might say, my new home course, TPC Scottsdale. Sobel was there, roaming around, talking to the people, talking to the players. Jason Sobel, golf extraordinaire, gambling extraordinaire. What's going on, bro?
John, so good to be back with you. I feel like I'm your side piece. You finally got away from the wife who's the NFL and football season, and you go, oh, what else is around here? Oh, I can just talk to Sobel about golf until the NFL comes back. So I'm so happy to just be sitting here. I've sat here for the last few months just waiting for you to call me so I can come on the show, and I finally got the call.
I'll be honest. I tell people this all the time. I like golf. My relationship with golf is so much different in football because I can play. And I'm having my moments, not bad. I don't get to go to Lambeau. Now, if 50 million people, as they watch the playoffs, watch golf, I would gladly pivot, but there's just the power of the NFL. But this is my true love. This is my true love. And my gambling, to speak about my two true loves, I hit Max Homa at Torrey Pines. I put $100 on him, won 2,100. So I had 2,200 in my account. And I said, well, I'll put 200 of those on Max at LACC. It's kind of the Matt Fitzpatrick of last year, right? All the
rest of the world. Yeah, Max is going to be even money for the U.S. Open pretty soon.
But everyone did it with Fitzpatrick, and he won. So I did it with Max. And then I took the other 2K, and I threw it on my friends with the San Francisco 49ers, and I waved goodbye to that thing. So we got to battle back. What's going on, man? How's life? How's the tour? What's going on?
Life is great. Tour's been good for the last month and a half. Out in Phoenix, as you mentioned, at the WM this past week. I was able to get a little work done in between hanging out in the suites at 16. I went to the backstage of the suites, which people don't even know. There is a suite that's so far beyond the scenes at 16 that it overlooks 15.
Who was in that? Who was in that?
I hung out with a very prominent NFL coach, where he was making some bets on guys coming up 15 with a Thunderbird, and I was helping him win every bet off the Thunderbird. I don't know. Can I give up the name? I don't know if I can.
Give him the. Come on. I mean, it's
my new BFF, Mike Vrabel of the Tennessee Titans. Great guy, loves golf. He invited me to come to Nashville and play golf with him. I don't think that was a real invitation, but I'm at least going to tell everyone that Vrabel invited me to come play golf with him.
You're telling me Mike Vrabel was holding it down at the Waste Management?
Yes.
Very on brand. I would have guessed. I would have first guessed Bruce Arians, obviously Arizona guy. I think he was there. But Vrabel, I know he's not necessarily coaching anymore, but Vrabel would be high on the list of guys shotgunning beers at hole 15 with the people.
Yeah, no shotgunning, but he was definitely having himself a good time, and we were hanging out. He was with a few friends that I knew and mutual friends, and we just started hanging out, talking golf for a couple hours on Saturday afternoon. But that was fun. Again, we're so far inside of 16 that we're overlooking 15. It's so funny. You get hey, let's go here, then there, and now we're like 800 yards behind the 16th hole now that we're just watching 15. He was cool. I ran into Michael Phelps, who is a golf nut, and he is firing. So he loves a little action. So me and him are going to talk action pretty soon, and we're going to hopefully get together. All these people that now have my number, and I'm like, yeah, we'll get together. We'll do all the famous celebs that on Saturday at the WM are like, dude, let's hang. We're best friends. Woke up on Monday morning and they're like, whose number is that? I'm not calling this guy. So I made friends.
5 tequila shots by noon on a Friday or Saturday gets a lot of people talking. Do you think it was extra? Did you feel a lot of NFL people out there because of the Super Bowl? I saw Adam Schefter roaming around and.
Yep. Hung out with Shefty and Boog around the golf course a little bit. There were a lot more people. The Pro-Am list was awesome. I mean, we had guys everywhere. We had Collins and I do our show, as you know, 2 to 4 Eastern time, which was noon to 2 out there. 17th tee box, which is actually better for the show than 16 because 17 during the Pro-Am, these guys have to wait for 15 minutes because it's a drivable par 4. So they're sitting there literally doing nothing. Hey, come on over and talk to us. In 2 days of 2-hour shows, we had 27 guests on. And I mean, I'm not talking about like, we had on like some guy from the tournament who does this. It was like Albert Pujols and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Larry Fitzgerald. And like, I mean, you knew everybody that was coming on our show. It was awesome. It was so much fun.
We go back-to-back weeks with two of the better par fours in all of golf, right? The hole 17 at TPC and then hole 10 at Riv. I've never played Riv. Got to meet some more famous people to get an invite, but I think 17 at TPC is one of the probably the coolest holes on the tour. Where does that rank for you?
So yeah, first of all, 17 last week is a really cool hole. 10 at Riviera is awesome. I can tell you that a few years ago,
10's harder, right? Wouldn't you
10's
say?
much harder. 10 is much harder. That just the green complex, the narrow green where you really have like no margin for error at 10, but it's a great hole because you can make birdie there, you can make double there, and there's not much difference between the two. There's a razor thin margin between making birdie and making double. I can tell you that about 4 or 5 years ago, it was the week I was covering the Farmers Insurance Open. On Monday, there was media day for the Genesis Invitational, and Tiger was going to be there. And so I said, yeah, why don't I just fly into LA, talk to Tiger, have some lunch in the Riviera Clubhouse, then I'll go out, play 18 at Riv, and then I'll drive down to Torrey Pines. That seems like a pretty nice start of the week. Well, what happened that day? Torrential rain in Los Angeles. Sorry, guys. We've got to shut it down. Can't go out on the course today, but hey, enjoy the salad. So we sat there and had lunch and then had to leave. So I am 0 for 1 in trying to get onto Riviera. So I'm right there with you. Never played it, but yeah, the 10th hole is one of my absolute favorites. I've spent hours at that golf tournament over the years, just hanging out at number 10 and just watching guys play it because you can play it so many different ways, and they will keep trying to figure it out this week. It's one of the best holes out there, really.
Well, I have to pull up the schedule, but I would imagine this is one of the better 14-day stretches on tour, right? Starting Monday last week to Sunday going to Riv. Obviously, you're on the grounds when it gets announced. Guys are on the, playing. Tiger Woods is playing. He's pretty secretive, so it's not like one of those things that probably starts making the waves. When he tweets it out, I'm playing. What was your reaction? Talking to players, what was their reaction? And does a guy have a chance?
I had heard some rumors that it was coming. Didn't know anything definitive, but yeah, Friday morning in Phoenix, we got that news. I was actually doing a podcast this morning with my buddy Ben Everill that I do a Links and Locks podcast with the Action Network. And Ben works for the PGA Tour. He was actually following Max Homa's group on Friday, and he was out there with them when he saw the news that Tiger was playing this week. And he pulled Max aside. He said, "Hey, by the way, Tiger's back next week." And he said Max's eyes lit up. He goes, "Dude, that's so awesome. I'm so happy." He said, "I don't care. We're all going to get together and carry him up those steps behind the 18th green if we have to. We'll get him up there." But it's just awesome to have him back. So I thought that was really cool. As for Tiger's chances this week, look, I look at this as this is a preseason game. It's a spring training game for Tiger Woods. He talks so often about needing reps. He hasn't played an official event since last summer's Open Championship. He hasn't played a non-major since November of 2021. I mean, it's been a long time since Tiger has been able to just go to an event and essentially, I don't want to say not care about it, not care about the result, because he always cares about the result. He wants to go out there and play well. He doesn't want to embarrass himself. But look, you don't show up to the Masters and say, "You know what, I'm just going to show up, get some reps and knock it around a little bit." You show up going, "I want to win this thing." Well, he wants to win this week, but it's more about what this means for the future. And so I love the fact that he's playing. If anything, he's more of a fade for me this week than anything else. I'm not betting minus 300 that he's going to miss the cut. By the way, that number went, and I was talking to Jeff Sherman, who's the VP of risk for Superbook Sports. That number went from minus 150 to minus 175 to minus 250 to minus 300 within 5 hours at their book on Friday afternoon. That means there's a lot of big time money betting Tiger to miss the cut. I'm not jumping on it at minus 300. Minus 150, I might have been there. The over-under is 73.5 for the opening round. I have a little inside knowledge. Someone may have dropped this on me that tee time should be out soon. By the time this pod is posted, the tee times will be out. So, I mean, I'm not really giving anything up, but I believe he's playing with JT and Rory. And even more surprising is that I believe he's playing Thursday afternoon and then Friday morning. It's cool, chilly, tough out there in the mornings. I would think that he'd want to go out Thursday morning and then rest up and be able to have some time in between the two rounds. I actually don't necessarily hate the under now that he's playing Thursday afternoon instead of Thursday morning. I think it'll be a little bit easier out there, but still, I mean, this first competitive round in a long time. Let's keep expectations at a minimum. Quite honestly, at the juiced up prices they have right now to fade Tiger, I'm not really fading him. I'm certainly not betting him. I'm just going to enjoy it this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think last time we saw him with Charlie, a lot of people that listen to this, follow the NFL pretty closely. The plantar fasciitis is something that knocks guys out for a long time. So to me, for him, I know it's his event, but to play in this, clearly his foot, the pain is doing a lot better. And like he said, the only way to make it go away. And I saw Eric Armstead had this with the Niners is just kind of rest. You just kind of got to stay off it, which is the opposite of the way Tiger operates. We, got this Navy SEAL mindset. He always wants to train and work out and play golf, but I would imagine that has changed over the years. Okay, let's dive in. For those of you new listening to the pod, actionnetwork.com, follow him on Twitter, at Jason Sobel, ITAN, and he puts out a weekly gambling, just a full-on breakdown of picks for all different levels, not just outright winners, which can be hard in golf, but top 10s, top 20s, top 50s, top 30s, DFS plays. Your pick this week, I thought, was followed with data. And, it's what many say has been the best player over the last, year and a half. You could argue there's two other guys, Rahm and Scheffler, but make your case for Rory McIlroy.
Yeah. So, John, I started doing this research last week where I was looking for something to separate Scheffler, Rahm, and Rory. Basically, you look at the three of them, they're the three best players, at least on the PGA Tour, if not the three best in the world. You know where I'm going with that. Cam Smith's pretty good too, but I'm going to keep him out of the equation as far as playing this week is concerned. But I'm looking for some sort of differential, something to separate these three guys. And so I went back since the beginning of last year. Scottie Scheffler has now won 5 times. Now, there's a correlation between those 5 that I think a lot of people wouldn't realize. Quite honestly, I didn't realize it myself until I started doing the research, but all 5 of those wins came when Scottie had the previous week off. He has not won when he's played the previous week. Said, okay, that's pretty interesting. Other than that, top 10 percentage, average finish, they're about the same. But those wins, all 5 on one side of it, that's interesting. I went and looked at Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm has won 5 times around the world since the beginning of last year as well. All 5 of Jon Rahm's wins came when he was off the previous week. Doesn't mean he's terrible when he plays the previous week, but only 3 top 10s in 7 starts when he's played the previous week, and his average finish goes from 11 and change to 20 and change. That's a pretty big difference. Now I went and looked at Rory, and from the first 2 guys, you might think, oh, well, all these top players, they play better when they're rested and when they can prep and when they haven't played the week before. Not so fast. Rory's numbers were pretty different. In fact, he's played 15 times, coming off a bye week, we'll call it, and he's won twice. Played 9 times, having played the week before. He also won twice. So the win percentage is much higher when he's played the week before. Top 10 percentage, way higher. He's finished top 10 7 of those 9 times, and his average finish is twice as good when he's played the previous week. What does that tell us? Maybe Scheffler and Rahm, maybe they're prepping a little bit better than Rory. Maybe they're getting their mindset right. Maybe they just like having that time off. Rory seems to need that time inside the ropes the previous week. Whatever the case is, that's a specific trend that I'm looking at this week. And it's one of the reasons that coming off all 3 of those guys playing last week in Phoenix, I really like Rory as instead of the other 2 guys at this one.
Safe to say last week, obviously for Scheffler and Rahm, I mean, this is a home track for him at Waste Management, Arizona. He balled there since he was in college. Scheffler, you could put him on the moon. His game would not change. Rory, a little more of an elitist crowd, LA probably fits his vibe a little more than the drunken crazies.
That is fair to say. I will say that I didn't spend a whole lot of time with Rory last week, but the little time that I did spend with him, I just got an underlying sense that wasn't really his thing. Now, I give Rory credit. He is part of this committee with the PGA Tour that pushed for the WM Phoenix Open to be a designated event. So once you do that, you sort of have to show up. And I like the fact that he's thinking about the greater good and not just himself. That said, you just got a sense like it's just not really his thing. And he's kind of looking ahead to other events. He'd only played once before. That was 2 years ago. It was still during COVID when they had limited attendance for those events. And so I just don't think if this was not a designated event this past week, you would not have seen Rory at TBC Scottsdale. This one at Riviera, much more a Rory McIlroy type of place.
One guy who started vibing over the weekend, and, you know, he's been a little off, but, you know, this is going to mean a lot to him. Tiger's his guy. Short game type course. Obviously, you got to hit it long. Like we were talking before, everyone hits it long now. What about JT at 15-1? You know, I know this history here is a little hit or miss, but it feels like, you know, maybe find a little form, starts getting dialed in. Feels like, you know, he's a guy that's getting lost in the shuffle that those three guys, it's in his mind, he's every bit as good as those guys. Whether that's true or not, like he believes that, right?
Love JT's game. Look, there are a lot of guys that you could ask me, hey, what about JT? What about Finau? What about Homa? What about Schauffele? What about Morikawa? What about Cantlay? I could quite honestly ride the fence and say, yeah, I like all those guys. I like all those guys every week. I like all those guys at Riviera. I can envision any of those guys winning this week. At some point, you got to take a stance and just go, I don't know. I like this guy a little bit more than that guy, and so I'm going to take him. But you know, it's very hard to separate all these guys from me. Justin Thomas, I think, is, I don't know, if he's not number 4 in the world on the PGA Tour, again, throwing in that Cam Smith wrench, which, you know, kind of makes things a little more difficult. But JT to me is a top 5 talent in the world, even if the official world golf ranking number doesn't show it. And for me, those top players can win any place, anytime. Certainly wouldn't surprise me to see JT win this week, just because it wouldn't surprise me to see JT win any week. He's that kind of talent. At some point, he's going to assert himself at a few more of these. And instead of saying, well, Scheffler, Rahm, Rory are the cream of the crop and they've separated themselves, we go, how do you leave Justin Thomas out of that mix? Because he does have that kind of talent. He just hasn't quite won as much as the other guys over the last year and a half.
Speaking of one of the guys you mentioned, odds are a little high for me, but to me, if you can get, I've wasted a lot of money over the years on Finau, but to me, some of these bigger tournaments, if he's hovering more like the 20 to 25 range, he's kind of proved, you know, he's more confident now to win tournaments over the last year, that he's proven that he can shut the door. That before, like at 16, 17-1, I don't know about that, but if I can get him at 25, 28-1 in some of these, like that's pretty good value for a guy now that I think you can use the words win equity, right? Because he has won.
I like Finau. Look, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I like him. I like him every single week. You know, if you told me like, hey, you could have Tony Finau every week this year, you want to take it? Yeah, sure. I mean, if I do that, I'm going to win 2 events at least, and I'm going to hit him on outrights. But I am saving Tony. If I can only bet Tony Finau at one Los Angeles based event this year, hint, hint, I am taking him at the other one that we'll see in about 4 months from now, if you get what I'm saying.
If we can get him at like 25 to 28-1 range, hopefully he'd have to play kind of poorly leading up to that. I'm with you there.
John, let me tell you, I just want to break that, by the way, and for those who don't know, I'm speaking about LACC, which will play host to the U.S. Open in June this year. And I know a lot of people still think, U.S. Open, you got to keep it in the fairway, you got to hit greens. Tony's kind of a big hitter. Look at the guys who have won the U.S. Open in recent years. Bryson DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Gary Woodland, all big, strong dudes. Essentially what happens at a U.S. Open, no one keeps it in the fairway. Everyone's hitting from the rough. You've got to be big and strong to hit it out of the rough. Tony's played well in L.A. before. I think it's a great Tony Finau type of track if indeed he's playing his best golf come June. So, again, doesn't mean I don't like him this week. I still like him this week as well, but I'm going to wait on Tony until we get to the U.S. Open.
Well, even Fitzpatrick last year added length to his game, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
A guy that I brought up just because it's cool to see. I mean, him and Ricky, but Jason Day's a guy with more win equity than Ricky historically. His game, the last 3 tournaments, T18, T7, 5th. I know he hasn't played well here, and you're trying to shoot me down on this, but he's a guy, short game's unreal. Feels like he's much more just in the ballpark now off the tee, playing that butter fade. Feels like from a mental space, A lot of positive vibes coming from Jason Day. I know you don't like him here. I'm going to dabble, but just big picture. I mean, is this a guy that you see winning this season? Because he's a guy that,
Yes.
with win equity from 35 to 50 and to 1, he's going to hover in that range.
Yes. Former number one player in the world who at times looked invincible as a number one player. You go back and look at Jason Day's record in the summer of 2015, you're like, oh my God, there were like Tiger-like numbers. Granted, it only lasted about 3, 4, 5 months, but he was unbelievable for a time. And so, yes, whether it's family stuff, whether it's just sort of losing your swing, changing coaches, there's a lot of things that have happened to and for Jason Day over the years, but he's certainly back right now. I am not going to be on Jason this week. As I mentioned to you before we started recording here, he's played the Genesis Invitational 5 times in his career. He's only made the cut twice. Nothing better than a 62nd place finish. He's only broken par in 3 of 14 rounds. No thank you on Jason Day this week. No thank you at 40 to 1. Once he gets up to, let's call it maybe 50 to 1, 55 to 1, where I can get him at maybe Bay Hill or the Players Championship. Now that's where I'm jumping back on J Day. So I do like him long term. I do think he wins something this year, but I'm going to be off him this week.
Love a good long shot. I know you do too. Hit me with a couple.
All right, let me start you off with a guy that's, I know Taylor Montgomery has gotten all the pub as being the best rookie so far, and he deserves it, although he's kind of lost his game over the last few starts. Thomas Dietrich came over from the DP World Tour, and I know a lot of people don't know much about him, but he's made 8 starts. He's a veteran. I mean, he's been playing the DP World Tour for a while. He's never won there, but he's got 9 top 3 finishes. The guy keeps coming close year after year. He's played 8 events so far this season. He's made the cut in all of them. He's at 4 top 25 finishes. I don't know that he's ready, especially not having ever won on the DP World Tour, to go win a PGA Tour event, especially a PGA Tour event of this magnitude with this many good players. But he's 180 to 1. Just the top 10, top 20 value that you have there on Dietrich. I think he's a really smart play. 6th on the PGA Tour in scrambling. He also mashes it off the tee. I really like that. A couple other guys, Wyndham Clark, who's been playing fantastic. There's one book that's got player market bets, essentially over under for their finishing position. Wyndham Clark's finishing position over under is 52nd over at Bet365. I look at it and I go, 52nd. He's finished better than 52nd in each of his last 7 starts. He's much better than
7 to 1, 7 to 1 to top 10.
Give me that all day. Yeah, I do like that. He was 10th last week in his second top 10 in his last 4 starts.
Then, Christian McCaffrey's good buddy, Wyndham Clark as well.
Oh, okay.
Went to high school together.
Christian McCaffrey. I saw him walking through the suites at 16 the other day. By the way, like with 25,000 people around 16, like Christian McCaffrey walks past you, you do not point at him and go, that's the best running back in football right there. He's like, I don't know, there's some dude that walked past me. So,
yeah. Sneaky.
Doesn't look like it. Sneaky. I got one more name here. How about Alex Noren, who's played some good golf at Riviera over the past year? I went and looked at the last 16 tournaments that he's played in where they've measured strokes gain stats. 14 of them, he's gained strokes putting. And in a lot of circumstances, he's gained a lot of strokes putting. For a guy who's been known as a ball striker, we've seen his hands all calloused up all the time. Like, this guy's a really good ball striker. And the fact that he's putting it really well, at some point, that's going to equate to some really good stuff for Alex Noren.
Bryson DeChambeau, thoughts?
I don't like him this week. What does he do? I mean, come on. It's just.
I honestly, I miss him. I miss him. I just miss him around the craziness. The weirdos, the crazies are missed. There's no debating that, right?
We were talking about this off air before we started. The one thing that Live Golf has done to the PGA Tour is it's taken away all of the polarizing players. Bryson, Patrick Reed, Phil Mickelson, Bubba Watson, Ian Poulter, Brooks Koepka,
Sergio.
Sergio. Oh, I forgot Sergio. Jeez. The most polarizing player of the last 25 years. I mean, anybody who's like, people watch and they see on their TV, they go, man, I hate that guy. Or, man, I love that everyone hates that guy because I'm going to root for him. Golf is better with players who inspire passion amongst the masses. And I think the PGA Tour, for all the good things that are going on with the PGA Tour right now, it's really hard to watch on a Sunday afternoon and go, screw Nick Taylor. I want that guy to lose. Stupid Canadian. There's no passion on a player like that. You might like him. You might be from Canada. You might have gone to Washington and rooted for him there. You might like him, but nobody hates him. And so we are left with a full tour of guys that nobody really hates. And that doesn't inspire passion. There's no polarization. And I think that's a thing that makes the PGA Tour worse. I think it's better when you've got some villains, got some heels.
Well, Sobel, let's enjoy the tournament, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy. Great to be back with you. So
Good
glad
to have you
football's
back.
over.
See you, buddy.